Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my recent reading wrap up. For the month of January, I read a total of 10 books and I had a total of 8 DNFs. Let's get the DNFs right out of the way. First up is Black Rabbit Hall by Eve Chase, Shiver by Allie Reynolds, The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer, The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Again, I suggest the BBC drama for Neverwhere. I tried this book and like literally within the first chapter, I could not get on with it. It was dry. It's the way it's written. I didn't like it, but I do suggest the BBC drama, which has James McAvoy, Christopher Lee, amongst many other voice actors that are fantastic. It's entertaining, it's funny, it is a really good time. So when it comes to Neverwhere, I'm sticking with the BBC drama. Next is Darkly by Marisha Pessl. Then I tried Wicked by Greg Maguire. No, I was disappointed in Wicked in the book and in the movie, okay? I saw the last 10 minutes of that movie, y'all, was what the entire almost 3-hour film should have been. I'm not here to do a rant about the Wicked movie. I'm just saying I think it needed to stick to being a Broadway play. And when it comes to the book, it was, I mean, within the first 2 minutes, I'm not exaggerating, within the first 2 minutes I was like, this is not going to be for me. It's written as like a classic would be written. I don't like that kind of writing. It was very boring. Just starting off, I was like, nope. And lastly, this is a soft DNF. The Binding by Bridget Collins and Carl Prekep. This is a soft DNF because this seems, for me anyway, the pacing is slow, but not slow when like it's just dragging on forever and you're bored. It's slow because the tone of the story is meant to be slow. So it feels like it should be like a cinematic, it should be a movie. I think I need my own narration to make this work so I can see my own movie with the pace that is happening. Like, because it's slow, it's slowly paced in tone. Everything that's happening, I don't want to miss the details that are happening to appreciate like the reason why it's paced this way. So eventually I am going to pick up the physical copy of this and give it another go. All right, let's jump right into it. First up was The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. I love Kate Quinn, but there are 4 Kate Quinn novels that I wanted to read. So The Alice Network was the last of the 4. So I have read all of Kate Quinn's novels that I've wanted to read. And I honestly will say this one was the least of my favorite. So this is historical fiction following 2 women. One, her name is Eve. She is a female spy that was recruited to what was known as the Alice Network in France during 1915 World War I. The other point of view that we're following is set in 1947, post-World War II. Her name is Charlie, and she is looking for her missing cousin who she believes had disappeared in the midst of the war. So we're going from past to present timelines. These 2 women end up meeting and their purposes intertwine. What is it about this that I'm not really vibing with? And it had to do with the pace, because I loved Eve's point of view. Eve's point of view was, it would get fat. It was like, it kind of, the pace was, it felt even. It felt right for what was happening, and it was fast and gripping. And then we'd switch to Charlie's point of view and it would just, it wasn't intriguing enough. I didn't like her character enough to want to stay in her point of view, first of all. And secondly, even if I don't like a character, because I have read a lot of books where the character is not likable, but the intrigue of them is what I love. She's missing both of those. So the pacing, I would go from being gripped and like excited with Eve and then moving into Charlie's perspective, and just, it would throw me off. So for that reason, I'm giving this 3 stars. But I will honestly say you can definitely see an improvement in her books that followed this. So I will say, if you've never read Kate Quinn before and you want to try out all of her World War II historical fiction novels, I would say start with this one and then work your way up. I did it the opposite. So I can really appreciate how she changed in her writing. I can just see the difference. Next up is The Hitchcock Hotel by Steph Roble. So this was a new release, and obviously the premise of this was very intriguing, and being a Hitchcock fan myself, I could not pass it up. We are following our main character, Alfred. He is a Hitchcock fanatic who opens up a secluded themed hotel based on the Hitchcock films. So he invites his old college friends for a weekend to stay, obviously with a hidden agenda. And after all, no Hitchcock set would be complete without a body. Dun dun dun. Anything themed would be a hit, really. So the fact that this is Hitchcock themed, there's like round the clock film screenings, there's memorabilia, movie props everywhere. I mean, it's as if you have stepped in to a Hitchcock film set. So the one thing I really did appreciate in this story was the nostalgia that it gave me, all the references. I think there was only like one reference from a movie that I hadn't seen, but everything else I totally got, and I really did appreciate that. And I say that because I only gave this 3 stars. This was a meh. I was hoping this was going to be a 5, but it was a meh. It was just a 3. And the reason is because it was very anticlimactic, y'all. Not even just the ending. It was like, you know, like the beginning was kind of promising, but then like when you get halfway, it's like when I got halfway, I knew. I was like, this is not going to pick up. This is just going to stay mediocre. So the premise and the theme was fantastic. The idea was great, but the execution just fell. And what ended up happening was not even really thrilling, and I think it could have been. That's the difference. I think that it really could have been if she just had taken her time more with kind of planning another direction. I think it should have gone in another direction. I think that even with what she had written, she could have made it more exciting with how it ended, and it just wasn't. It was just like, wow, very anticlimactic, and for that I give it a 3. Next up was The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This is a mystery thriller. We are following 2 timelines here. Our main character, Viv, we are in her point of view, set in 1982, upstate New York. She ends up working at this rundown Sundown Motel, and she ends up there because she kind of runs away from her life, I believe, and just she's on this investigation for the disappearance of her aunt that happened 35 years prior. And this is the place that her aunt was working at the time that she disappeared. Of course, there are lots of secrets that she starts to uncover. There is also a paranormal element to the story. I did not know that going in. So if you are intrigued by that, anything paranormal, like mystery, thriller, suspense element, this does have that in here. Was unexpected when it happened. I don't know if anyone else is saying in their reviews that this has paranormal elements, but this is totally out of the blue for me. I had no idea that was going to be in there. And then we also switched to her aunt's point of view 35 years prior. So those are the 2 kind of timelines. This was another meh read. I gave this 3 stars. It just didn't have enough speed behind it. Like even when the paranormal elements kicked in, it wasn't thrilling or suspenseful. It was just like, okay, what's next? It's just, I wasn't on the edge of my seat, okay? Next is Midnight Sun by Steph Meyer. I had read Twilight, that series, when I was a teenager. It has been a long time, long time. Bella in the books and Bella in the movies are 2 different people. Okay, like in the movie, she is the most boring character in existence. The most boring character alive. At least in the book, she kind of stands up for herself, and she has a little bit more of a backbone, and she's kind of fiery. Like she has a little bit of spunk in her, and in the movies, she is just like... There's a lot of face touching and a lot of just mouth gaping. The movie is a train wreck, the first one, on a superficial level. I have to say, I rewatched the movies when I read this book. On the surface level, the movies are not good except for movie 4. The movie 4 is actually a really good movie. It is the best. The movie 5, because there's 5. I think Breaking 1 was set into 2 parts. So the 5th movie, the very last movie, the first 4, not good. Not good on the surface level. The only reason that there is an attraction for this is the archetypes. This story captures archetypes, and that is what we are all attracted to. You have Edward, our main guy, our vampire, who, and again, I look at it from archetypes, which is my attraction. My attraction to anything is through an archetypal lens, okay? So you have the hero, you have the villain, you have the vampire, that is an archetype. And you have wolves, which are the protector. You have protector archetypes. So you have, what you're really seeing and what you're attracted to are the archetypes that are represented in this story. Midnight Sun, we are in the perspective of Edward. This is from good old Eddie's point of view. And this, of course, draws on the classic myth of Hades and Persephone. And it would have been better if he was, God, and this really bothers me. It's like, oh my God, if he was only written as the emotionally matured vampire he's supposed to be, because he sounds like a 20-something-year-old, not a 100-and-something-year-old, okay? Huge difference. And that is how, you know, like this is another idea from an author, creative, fantastic, but doesn't have the tools to execute it. Anyone can have a fantastic creative idea, but if you don't know how to see it and feel it and how to execute it in a way where it's like it comes together. The archetypes are there, so I give her that. The archetypes are there, but it's written in a way where it's just like, you know, this really missed the mark. He's 18-year-old in body, but is he frozen in an 18-year-old's mind, like internally as well? No, he's not frozen internally. There should be so much growth happening internally. He's 100-and-something years old, being drawn to a teenage girl, and this teenage girl is an older soul. That could have been done so much better, and instead it's weird. It doesn't have to be weird. I get that old soul connection thing, okay? But it's not done in a way where that even makes sense. She doesn't even speak as if her soul is older, and he doesn't speak from the time frame that he belongs to. How can you miss that? He is swoon worthy just in the idea of the time frame that he came from. So there should have been so many like chivalrous and romantic, like poetic notions just from that in and of itself. And it's not. I'll tell you what does make sense in this, okay? Because everything else is just like, God, I'm here for the archetypes. I'm here for the archetypes. This, I just kept wanting to toss the book. But I'm like, I'm here for the archetype. It does make sense in the story. There's so much internal conflict and struggle because he's archetypically struggling to stay in the hero, stay in the villain, like go to the villain, but then he goes to the protector. So he's constantly going and trying to enter all like several different archetypes. And when he chooses the villain, like he stays there, like that archetype kind of takes over. So from his point of view, you feel that. The fact that he has an ability to read minds and he can't read her mind, that makes sense why he's attracted to her. It's naturally going to happen. The whole time he like verbally can't communicate. He has a problem with verbal communication because he's never had to do it with people before, because he's reading everybody's minds. So with someone, so it kind of makes sense that there's like this like awkward communication thing because he doesn't know how. He's like learning a new skill and he realizes he is dependent on this and it's made him weak or impotent in an area. He doesn't have to seem like a 20-something-year-old while learning a new skill. They don't have to go together. I've ranted enough. I've said my piece. All in all, I give this 3 stars. Next up is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. Y'all, I gave this 2 stars. This was my it's so disappointing. So disappointing. This was a new release. I was very excited for it. Adrienne Young is one of my favorite authors. This woman can write, and I will say right now that this did not even seem like her writing. In this, we are following our main character, James, who is investigating her twin brother's mysterious death. Said that there is an intuitive connection that she has with him. So when he dies, she immediately feels it, like she immediately knows it. So she goes back to the rural town that they grew up in to settle his affairs. People from their past kind of force her to face the truth, what she uncovers. So when this first started off, it was like tonefully atmospheric. I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. Because, you know, I was excited. This is one of my favorite authors, and I was excited for a new release, and it's starting off real good. Like, it was like, oh, this is gonna be good. I was excited, y'all. So I say tonefully atmospheric because it's like you can feel it in how it's being written. It's not so much like the physical atmosphere you feel, it's literally the tone. But it went downhill after that. Characters have no development and no depth whatsoever. It lacked emotional depth. I didn't care about anything. I did a buddy read. I buddy read this with my friend Rena, and her and I both felt the same. We were like, what is this? We didn't care about squat. Is there even there's no build up. I was like, is there going to be a build up? I got to the point where there was no build up. And I didn't really care or understand what the point of any of it was. What is the point of the story? Next up is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This one, I don't know how to put into a category. Is it magical realism with historical fiction? It's a little bit of both. So in this story, we are kind of weaving together the stories of 3 women from 3 different timelines. In the year 2019, we are following Kate, who is fleeing London from an abusive husband. She is fleeing to her recently deceased great aunt's wayward cottage. This leads her to a secret that has been hidden since the witch hunt of the 17th century. Then we go to 1619. Altha is on trial for murder, who was taught that magic. She wasn't taught like runes and charms and like witchcraft magic. She was taught magic of the natural world. Then we're switching over to the year 1942. In the middle of World War II, Violet is trapped, kind of like a gilded cage, in her grand estate. Her mother died when she was born, as she was told, with only traces of a locket with a W inscribed in it and the word wayward scratched on a floorboard. This is a feminine generational story. All right, y'all, there were parts of this that were really hard to listen to. So fair content warnings for sexual abuse in this. It's a generational story of abuse that follows these 3 women. And all 3 of them have to overcome big life events. So animals and bugs are a big part of the magic system in their family line, and it's really quiet. I'm like, when is the magical realism gonna pick up? Because like the whole thing is really just magic is just kind of talked about, and there's little things that happen, but it's not seen and it's not described enough. I'm like, oh, give me more. The magical realism does not really take center stage until like the last hour of this audiobook. The last hour was my favorite. Like I said, throughout the whole thing, it's really too quiet, which is the reason I gave this 4 stars and not 5, because it was just too quiet for me, and I wanted it to go more into the magical realism side. But all in all, I loved it. I had a really good time. The historical elements in this, like from the different time frames, and how the story is told from generation to generation. Revenge, because this is partly a revenge story. The revenge as well is there. It's very atmospheric in the tone. Like I said, I really enjoyed the ending, so 4 stars. Next up is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and I'm doing a reread with my friend Rena. In Caraval, we are following 2 sisters, Donatella and Scarlett. They escape their tiny island and their abusive father to take part in the once-a-year magical game called Caraval. So in this, we are in Scarlett's point of view. Scarlett is kidnapped by Caraval's mastermind legend, and whom we don't meet and no one knows. She is told everything that happened is only a game and is only a performance. There's 5 nights of play in Caraval when you were a player in this game, because she becomes a player, and it is, for some people, it's magical and intriguing, and but it becomes a nightmare really quick. It's like it could be a dream or it could be a nightmare. Okay, currency is not money when you play Caraval, like with all these like magical shops. Anything that you buy, you are trading, you know, you're trading deep secrets, or like your biggest fear, or a day of your life, like in return for something else. Things are used against you. There's bribes and bargains at every turn. Some crazy things that happen in this. and Scarlett needs a lot of therapy. That's all I'm gonna say. What ends up happening is just like there's a twist, there's a nice plot twist at the end, and Legend, just his mythical, because he is a legend. He's called a legend, he is a legend. He has this mythical essence surrounding him and his magical abilities at what he can do. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. I didn't give it a full 5 because it was just missing a little something for me. Like it needed a little bit more. But I love Caraval. I love this series and I can't wait to jump into book 2. Next up is The Lightness by Emily Temple. This is a young adult dark academia set in a Buddhist retreat. This Buddhist retreat is called the Levitation Center. Our main character, Olivia, ends up here at the teen summer program. She is secretly there to try to investigate the disappearance of her father, who disappeared a year before, and this was the last place that she had known him to be. So she ends up getting involved with 3 girls. One is the leader. Her name is Serena. She is the leader, and the other 2 girls are kind of like her acolytes. And Serena is very much separated from everybody else at the center. She lives in a fancy tent in the woods, or a yurt. Like, she lives out in a yurt in the woods. She gets whatever she wants. Like a mysterious, mystical kind of element to her. She has this kind of like magnetic presence. Basically, her mission for her and the other 3 girls, because Olivia becomes their 4th in the group, is to levitate no matter what the cost. So in this, there's so much sarcastic humor, and there is shock value. I am gonna say the author added in humor that has shock value as well. Some of the things are just like, jeez. So that's in there as well. I gave this 4 stars. I did not give it a 5 because I felt like the ending, I'm like, really? Urgh. I just wanted something more and different in the ending. And honestly, usually if I feel that way, I can rewrite it. I can rewrite what I wanted it to be to, you know, so I can be satisfied. But honestly, with what happened, I still don't know how I would rewrite this to make it a more satisfying ending for me. I'm kind of like, this is kind of, you know, I feel stuck there. Like, okay, how would I even make that something satisfying for myself with what happened? I'm still pondering it. It's messing with me, but I do really recommend this. This is a dark academia story that is different and unique just because of the whole setting and premise, and it was really enjoyable. Next up is Beautiful Ugly by the Alice Feeney. This one was her recent release, and it did not disappoint. In this, we are following our main character, Grady. He is an author. He gets some really big, exciting news about his recent book. He calls his wife, Abby, while she is driving to share the news. And while he's on the phone with her, he hears her slam on the brakes, leave the car, and then there's nothing. He ends up finding her car by the cliff's edge, and she is completely gone. So from that moment on, he never hears from her. It goes like unresolved. So a flash forward to a year later, he is stuck. He can't write anymore, and his agent happens to be his wife's godmother. So she offers him the keys to a remote cabin on a Scottish island to try and write and move through all of these emotional blocks. Then he starts seeing his wife everywhere. You know what? I don't even remember. I think he might have started like ghost seeing her before, because he can't sleep anymore. So it's kind of giving the impression that maybe he's starting to go a little crazy because he's an insomniac. So it's either right before, during, and right after he gets to this place that he starts seeing her. I gave this a 4.5 star. It was pretty great. It was really good. And honestly, if you like rock, paper, scissors, I highly recommend reading this. This has rock, paper, scissors vibes immediately. It wasn't a 5-star for me because it was just missing a little ingredient that could have put me like on the edge of my seat. I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I got through it really fast, but I didn't have just that like unput-a-downable feeling that rock, paper, scissors gave me. And lastly, Why People Don't Heal and How They Can by Carolyn Myss. Caroline has recently become one of my best teachers, and I can't recommend her enough. In this one, she is talking about how you become spiritually then physically ill. It's about how to understand our 7 energy centers and working with them in order to heal, and the symbolic language on how they, like the imprint of them and the symbology of them and what they represent in our bodies. Symbolic perspective on healing life issues and illness, rituals and steps to put in place daily for change. So Anatomy of the Spirit is Caroline's introduction to most of everything that she writes. So I would recommend reading that one first, and the audiobook is like only 2 hours long because it's basically an intro to the majority of everything that she writes and what she teaches. So I would recommend starting there first before jumping into literally anything else. Of course, I gave this 5 stars. I highly recommend her. She's amazing. She's awesome. She has really affected my life. All right, y'all, that is everything I read in the month of January. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of my recent wrap up. If you like any of the ones I've mentioned, I would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to give me that thumbs up and smash that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming bookish content. And as always, happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.